Today's sermon is titled, The Land of the Living, When Honor Outlasts Betrayal. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, so that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God has given you. Let me ask you something. What do you do when the very people you carried now act like they don't remember? What do you do when the honor feels like a burden and the family feels like opposition? Legacy is not about who's left on paper. It's about who stays faithful. You don't need everybody to see your value, but you do need to remember God sees stewardship even when people forget sacrifice. Let's talk about a fictional story that is based on real life. The story of Eli. Eli was the youngest son of 4 children born to a mother and father who had land and passed that land down. That land was in the family since slavery and civil rights. This wasn't just dirt. It was deliverance. It was an inheritance of struggle, a testimony of survival. When their parents passed, the land was to be shared among the 4 children. Eli, his older brother, and a younger and older sister. The older sister sold her land and walked away. The older brother died. That left Eli still alive, still keeping the land, and still keeping it intact. Eli never walked away. He stayed. He paid the taxes. He had someone fix the fence. He fought off foreclosure. He kept the inheritance, not just in name, but in function. More than that, Eli acted as the family help desk. When his sister needed to move, Eli helped her move out of a wretched place to a glorious place called the state of love. When the nephew needed a new start, Eli found him a job, an apartment, and helped him move to the honeydew place. When emergencies hit, Eli didn't just pray. He gave for over 20 plus years without complaining, without keeping score, without asking for anything. But now, when we found out the legal ownership of the land heired to him had to be clarified, Eli discovered something very painful. The sister and the nephew would not support him. He didn't ask them to help with taxes because he felt that in his heart that was his duty. But they would not sign the land over. And worst of all, they said they'd rather see the land foreclosed than to see Eli with his peace. Isn't it something when people you carried would rather see you fall than to see you flourish? But God doesn't leave you ignorant. That very person, that very sister told that brother years ago, quote, "I ain't got no shame," end quote. That should have told the brother something. But let me anchor this thing in Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Honor your father and your mother so that your days may be long in the land. You see, Eli honored his parents, not just with words, but with stewardship. Biblical honor doesn't always look like a ceremony. Sometimes it looks like keeping a roof patched in a cabin while it's raining. Sometimes it looks like paying a tax bill nobody wants to deal with. Sometimes it looks like standing alone for what your parents believed in together. But Proverbs chapter 17, verse 13 reads, One who returns evil for good, evil will not depart from his house. In this situation, they repaid Eli's love with resistance. They took his kindness for granted and his stewardship as a threat. But the word reminds us, you don't lose when you're faithful. I'm going to say that again. The word reminds us, you don't lose when you're faithful. When you're faithful, you plant. And the one who plants in tears will reap the joy. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 reads, let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due time we will reap if we do not grow weary. Whew, that's hard. Eli may not have the signatures, but he has sanctification. He may not have support, but he has the stamp of God's favor. He that has an ear, let him hear. Hear me today. God honors the Elis in your life. To every person who held it together while others walked away, to everyone who preserved what others took for granted, to the faithful who were forgotten, to the carriers of legacy when others just carried bitterness. He is the God who sees. You don't do it for praise, you do it for purpose. You don't hold on for control, you held on for covenant. You didn't fight because you were angry, you fought because you were anointed to guard legacy. Regardless of what they say, regardless of how they look, regardless of what they see, what they think they see. The 37th division of Psalms 18 reads, the Lord knows the days of the blameless, and their inheritance will be forever. You may not win in probate court, but you will stand tall in the court of heaven. Maybe you're here today and you've been wrestling with legacy, land, family, respect, and betrayal. Maybe you've been Eli, standing in the middle of the battlefield you didn't choose. Let me tell you this. You're not fighting alone. There's a Savior who knows betrayal. There's a Savior who knows rejection. There's a Savior who stood alone so you won't have to. John chapter 3, verse 16 through 17 reads, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but will have everlasting life. Verse 17 goes on to say, for God did not send his Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world might be saved through him. If that's you, if you're tired but still faithful, come to the Lord. Leave your burdens to the Lord. If you're wounded but still believing, come. If you're carrying a legacy you didn't create but refuse to destroy, come. Stewardship of your salvation is not weakness, it's obedience. Honor doesn't always look like harmony, but it always leads to God's favor. I will not forfeit legacy because God is still writing our story. He that has an ear, let him hear